Hello, my friend. How are you today? I want to share something with you, something very personal, because I know many of you feel the same way. People listen to me today and think, wow, Tommy speaks with confidence. Tommy makes it sound easy. But the truth is, it was not always like this. In fact, there was a time when English felt almost impossible for me. I remember the frustration so clearly. I studied for years, like so many people do. I memorized vocabulary lists. I filled notebooks with grammar rules. I spent hours reading texts and doing exercises. On paper, I was good. I understood English when I read it. I could follow some conversations. I could even translate sentences. But when it was time to open my mouth, my brain betrayed me. It was as if everything I had studied disappeared in the exact moment I needed it. I froze. I hesitated. And silence was all I had. One day, in a simple meeting, I was asked to say something in English. It was not a big deal, just a small question. But my heart started to beat so fast. My hands were sweating. And I could hear my own thoughts screaming, "Come on, Tommy. You know this. You studied this. You can do it." But nothing came out. I looked at people's faces, waiting, and all I gave them was silence. That moment broke me. I felt so embarrassed, so small, almost invisible. Maybe you have felt like this too. Maybe you know the exact pain of being stuck, of having the knowledge, but not the courage, of wanting to speak, but not finding the words. It's a terrible feeling. At that time, I thought maybe English was not for me. Maybe I was not smart enough. Maybe fluency was only for people who lived abroad or had special talent. I almost gave up. But deep down, something inside me refused to accept that. There was a small voice telling me not to quit, that there had to be another way. And one night, while I was lost in frustration, I came across a simple message that changed everything for me. It said, "English is not difficult. English is not impossible. You can speak English." I don't know why, but those words touched me. They were so simple, but they felt like the truth I needed. And that night, I made a promise to myself. I would not give up. I would stop complicating everything. I would stop chasing perfection. I would find a new way. The next morning, something shifted. I woke up and decided to try differently. No grammar books, no exercises, no long study sessions. Just me, my thoughts, and a decision to live the language instead of studying it. And even though my first attempt felt strange, it was the beginning of everything. That was the day I stopped being just a student of English and started becoming a user of English. That was the day I realized that the problem was never English itself. The problem was my fear. And if I wanted to change, I had to face it. After that first small change, my life with English slowly started to transform. And let me be honest with you, my friend, it was not magic. It was not overnight. It was slow. It was uncomfortable, but it was real. I began to understand that fluency is not a single moment. It's a process, a journey. And the most important step of that journey is not about knowledge. It's about mindset. For years I carried the idea that English was this huge mountain, too big for me to climb. Every time I made a mistake, every time I forgot a word, I felt like proof that I wasn't good enough. And this is how many students feel. We believe we need to be perfect before we even start. But perfection is a trap. If you wait for perfection, you will never speak. What changed for me was the realization that mistakes were not a sign of failure, but a sign of progress. When I looked at a baby learning to walk, I thought about it. The baby falls again and again. But does anyone tell the baby to stop? Of course not. Falling is part of walking. And then I asked myself, why should English be different? If mistakes are part of walking, then mistakes are part of speaking too. So I began to give myself permission to fail. I stopped punishing myself every time I got something wrong. I started to see mistakes as proof that I was trying, proof that I was alive in the language. And with that, the fear slowly started to lose its power over me. Because fear only grows in silence. The moment you open your mouth, even if you make mistakes, you are already winning. I also realized that my brain believed everything I told it. For years, I repeated to myself, my English is bad. I cannot speak. I am not good enough. And my brain believed it. It accepted those words as truth. So I decided to change the message. Instead of saying, I am bad at English, I began to tell myself, I am improving. I am learning every day. And little by little, my brain started to believe this new story. And once I believed it, my actions followed. Mindset was the foundation. Without changing the way I thought about English, nothing else would have worked. With a negative mindset, every small mistake felt like a disaster. With a positive mindset, every small mistake felt like a step forward. The words we say to ourselves matter more than we imagine. And for me, repeating new thoughts, building a new identity as someone who was learning, not failing, was the key that unlocked everything else. That was the second big turning point in my journey. The first was refusing to quit. The second was refusing to believe the old lies I told myself. And maybe, my friend, this is where you are right now. Maybe you have studied for years. Maybe you have failed many times. And maybe you believe the same lies I believed. But I promise you, once you change the story in your head, the story in your life begins to change too. When my mindset started to change, everything else became easier. I finally understood that English could not be something separated from my life, like a subject at school that you only open when the teacher tells you to. No, English had to be part of me, part of my daily routine, something natural, like drinking water or brushing my teeth. This realization changed the way I looked at learning. Before, I thought learning was about long hours of study, about discipline and forcing myself to sit at a desk with heavy books. And of course, that always made me feel tired and guilty because I never did enough. But once I decided to live English instead of just studying it, everything became lighter. I didn't need extra hours. I just needed to connect English with the life I was already living. I remember thinking, I don't need to go to another country to be surrounded by English. I can create my own environment right here. And that's exactly what I did. I started to bring English into every corner of my day. It was not about intensity, it was about consistency. Small touches of English, again and again, until my brain got comfortable with it. At first, it felt a bit artificial. It felt strange, but after a while, it became natural. I noticed that my brain stopped fighting me. It was no longer a battle every time I wanted to think in English. Slowly, English stopped being something I had to force, and it started to feel like a familiar companion. And that, my friend, is when real progress begins. Looking back, I realized that the key was not how much time I dedicated in one single day, but how many days in a row I was willing to dedicate something, even something small. I had tried to learn with intensity before, long study sessions that left me exhausted, but they never lasted. Consistency is what really builds fluency. One drop of water does nothing, but drops every day carve a stone. That's how it works with English, too. And when English became part of my life, my fear started to fade. Because fear grows when something feels distant, unusual, or special. But once English became my everyday companion, the fear had no place anymore. It was not a monster I had to fight. It was just part of my life. I tell you this because maybe you believe you don't have time. Maybe you believe you need to travel abroad or take expensive courses. But that is not true. What you really need is presence. You need English to walk beside you every single day. And if you do that, even if it's small, even if it's 5 minutes, something starts to change inside you. That was the third big lesson in my journey. English is not something you visit from time to time. English is something you live with every day. Looking back at my journey, I can see so clearly the path I walked. I started full of fear, full of hesitation, trapped by my own perfectionism and by the lies I told myself. I believed English was too difficult, too far from my reality, and maybe not even possible for me. But the moment I changed my mind, everything else began to change. I understood that mistakes are not enemies. They are teachers. I understood that fear only grows in silence, and the only way to defeat it is by speaking, even if the words are broken, even if the sentences are simple. I understood that consistency is stronger than intensity, that small actions every day are more powerful than rare moments of effort. And most of all, I understood that English is not something you study like a math problem. English is something you live, you breathe, you carry with you in your daily life. Today, people see me speaking with confidence, recording this podcast, helping thousands of students, and they think it was always like this. But it wasn't. It was a journey, a long one, full of frustration and small victories. And that's why I tell you, my friend, do not give up. Because if I could transform my relationship with English, you can too. Every fear you feel today, I felt before you. Every moment of silence, I lived it too. But if you stay on the path, if you allow yourself to continue, if you stop waiting for perfection and start embracing the process, one day you will look back and realize how far you've come. The fear that feels so strong now will feel small. The hesitation that controls you today will disappear. And the words that hide inside your head will finally come out with freedom. English is not about talent. It's not about living abroad. It's not about being born with some special gift. It's about patience, presence, and persistence. It's about choosing every day not to quit. It's about building a new story in your mind and believing in it until it becomes real in your life. And maybe when that day arrives, when you feel the confidence I feel now, you will remember these words. You will remember this story, and you will tell yourself, if Tommy did it, if Tommy went from silence to fluency, then I can do it too. Because you can. So, my friend, this is not the end of my story, and it is not the end of yours. This is just the beginning. The journey of fluency is long, but it is worth every step. And I will be here, walking with you, reminding you that fear is temporary, but growth is permanent. One day, you will open your mouth, and the words will flow. And in that moment, you will smile, Just like I smiled the first time I realized I was free. And you will know, deep inside, English was never impossible. It was always inside you, waiting for courage, waiting for consistency, waiting for you to believe. And now, my friend, it is your turn to continue the journey. Don't wait. Don't doubt. Just keep going. Because the day you feel ready will never come. But the day you decide to start is already here. This is your moment. And I believe in you. Bay.